I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in an area called 105th Street, which was maybe 50,000 Jews in that area. And you walked along the street and you spoke Yiddish to everybody.
Was it a good life? Or was it a difficult life? Or both?
I didn't know it was difficult.
Okay.
Because we were poor. But all my associates, I was in a group starting at the age of 11 and 12, there were 10 of us. And everybody was the same, more or less. My father's name was Abraham, and my mother's name was Celia. And I had a sister by the name of Ethel.
Well, I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and I had the two brothers and a sister. And, well, we were poor, but my father was smart enough that he bought a house, and so we had tenants upstairs. And my father was a carpenter. My mother stayed home, took care of us, and he made a living. There were times, though, when it, especially during the winter, when he couldn't work, when it was a little tough. But we managed, and the neighborhood was not 100% Jewish like Cy. We lived in an area where there were a lot of Gentiles around, but there was no problem. I went through elementary, through high school. A lot of my friends did not finish high school. In Canada, when you turned 16, you could go out to work. And so a lot of my friends went to work. There were only, I think, just two of us that really finished high school. And but I worked during the summers. I worked in a purse factory. I worked in a dime store. I worked at the cosmetic factory. I had a lot of friends, and I had a whole group of girls. We had a club, like everybody else had a club. And we would have our meetings every Sunday afternoon. And when it was holidays, we would get dressed up and go to the park, and it was nice. Of course, I had my two brothers, my brother and I, my older brother and I, and we used to have problems. And of course, but the twins, there was a difference of 7 years. So that was, a different situation. We lived in a house, at least we had that. And so we didn't have to worry about moving from one place to another because Cy, when he was growing up, he moved a lot.
During the war, my two best friends who were 9 or 10 years my senior, one of them from New Jersey, Ray Brennan, told me that when the war's over, I'm going to go to Ohio State and major in accounting. So that's what I did.
How old were you when you started college?
I was,
You're 22.
I was in 46, just before I turned 21.
Okay. So did you join the Navy or were you drafted?
Drafted.
And that was right out of high school?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you served and then went to college afterwards?
Yeah. Summer of 48, I had put my name in the list at Ohio State to get a summer job. I came home and nobody contacted me, so I was starting to look to see what I can find in Cleveland. Then I got a call from Cedar Point asking me to come. They gave me a job as a waiter in the bar, in the restaurant, from 6 to 2. I ran into two guys that I didn't know, but within a day or two, I was buddies with them. And they said, hey, you want to meet these 5 girls that are from Canada, they said. So now we're going over, and as we're approaching, I hear this little voice talking shorthand. Well, being a shorthand expert, I got in right with her. And that evening, she had a date with one of those friends. And I was waiting at a table, and I asked her to meet me. What time you through? 2 o'clock. Well, she's not going to meet me at 2 o'clock. So that was a Monday, and I was off on Wednesday. So I had a date with her for Wednesday, and then after that, she met me at 2 o'clock while they were still there.
Well, let's see, I had gone with 4 of my friends, and 2 of them were the 2 that I mentioned earlier, Margie and Frida, and 2 others. And so we met, I met Cy and these other guys on the beach, and I had a date. And then after that, I did meet him, but I don't think it was 2 o'clock. I think it was more like 1. But then, of course, we had to leave. But then he came up. Let's see, this was July, and I think you stayed till August sometime. But then he came up Labor Day to Toronto to visit, and then he came in again the following month. You came for Rosh Hashanah, I believe. And of course, my parents liked him, especially my father, because his ancestry was not Polish. My father hated the Polacks. But this is all true. But he liked the Russians, and his family was from Russia. Well, I went down to Columbus for homecoming. That was November, and we got pinned. I mean, I never even knew from such things, all this stuff. And so that was November. And then December, I went to Cleveland to meet his family. And then we got married the following September. And through that time, I think I went back to Cleveland. I think you came up to Toronto. I don't even remember now. And we got married in September of '49. And I went to live in Columbus. And he was very happy because he got out of the fraternity, and where he got all his meals, so he didn't have to cook. and then we got married, and he didn't have to cook. We're married 67 years, and he's still not cooking. I became a citizen in 1952, I believe. I had to be living there 2 years after I got what they used to call first papers.
Automatically.
When I married you, okay, I had to go to wherever, I don't know where I even went to, the city hall or someplace, and so we had first papers, and then I think in 1952, which was about a little over 2 years, because we got married in September '49, I became a citizen. We were married in Toronto at a Beis Yehuda synagogue, which was a conservative synagogue. And then we went on a honeymoon to Montreal and Quebec City. And then we came back to Toronto, I believe. And then from there we left to go to Columbus. So we didn't have too much, but we managed between living in Columbus, between my working and his working.
What was your motivation to adopt?
Well, we couldn't, we were trying for a number of years, so we had to wait 5 years before I could go through Jewish Family Service, okay? In other words, you couldn't apply right away. Well, in the meantime, so I did call, and I said, we'd like to come for an interview or whatever you have to do. And they said, okay, well, it'll take 1.5 years for us to even see you. Okay, so that was 5 years plus another 1.5 years. I called Jewish Family Service back, and in the meantime, I was still going to doctors and trying to see what we could do. And they said, okay, so it was another 1.5 years before they did, or maybe 1 year before they called us. We went for interviews, and they put us on the list and everything. And it was, let me see, about 8.5 years after we were married that they called us, and they said, and I had put in for a girl. They called us on a Friday, and they said, good news, we have a child for you, a baby for you. Bad news, it's a boy. What do you want to do? So I said, I don't know about that. I said, she said, I'll tell you what, she says, we'll give you till Monday. She said, because we have a long list of people. And so you can think about it over the weekend. And this one says to me, gotta take the boy because we will never have any boys. And so we called, I said, fine, we'll take the boy. I think that we were to go and pick him up on Tuesday, I guess, and of course we had to have a bris. So we quickly called the mohel. I got, at the time, I forgot his name, and I called my parents, and my father says, oh, that's wonderful, and they were so happy, and what are you going to name him? I said, well, we were thinking of Robert David. But he said, what kind of a name is Robert David? So I said, it's really David Yitzchak. I said, David is after Sai's grandfather, and Yitzchak is after Zeta. That was my grandfather. So we just turned around, and that's how we got Robert David, because he always liked the name Bob. And, it was fine with me. Simple, he wanted simple names. Bob and Bruce and Steve, very simple names. So we had a very nice bris. And so I think I hired a nurse, too, because I didn't know what to do with him for a couple of days. And so it worked out okay. We were, we were living in a house at the time. Yeah, we were living on Cheltenham. So we had, plenty of room. And worked out fine. Oh, well, it was later years. You have to remember what they told me at the agency was, you were never going to get another child from us. I went to another doctor, and they found there was something wrong with me, and they did these different tests, and I got pregnant with Bruce. We wanted another child, and so I found another doctor. He did the same type of test, and I had Steve. I did want to have another child, and I remember I was about 38, and we talked about it, and I said, I don't know, Dad was never home, during the winter. He was never home, he was gone. And it was tough, with the 3 kids, and I didn't have any family there to help me. But so we decided, no, that was it.
What was your first fight?
You mean with, I don't remember. I really don't. Because we never fought. We had discussions. We did have a big fight later over the dog. And the dog used to go out and then come back and make in the house. And I remember one night we had, it was Corky and Gloria, as a matter of fact, came over. We had gone out for dinner. And I'm showing them around. I don't know what it was, some paintings, I think, of size. And there was this big mess in the dining room. And I said, the dog has to go. He gave it to a client of his who had a farm. But I think that you ran away to Daddy Cox. You were so upset. He was very upset. And I remember he packed his suitcase away, one of the suitcase belts. I think he stayed there for a few hours. I called and they said, okay, because he was very upset that we had given. But that was a terrible, terrible time. But then after that, we had a couple of other dogs. Kipper was one, and then we finally got Jenny.
What is your favorite memory together?
I don't know, I guess living together all these years, which is something that you don't think about. When you're first married and you're young, you really don't think about getting older. It's only as you get older that you think about it. So
Yeah, because we've never been old before.
what are your best memories?
On a day-by-day basis, when I come in a house and she's there, those are my best memories.
What is the secret to a successful marriage?
There may not be one specific item or action. It has to be a group. I think that as a CPA, I performed against those people. They were called clients. I used to mix in many times, and I don't know if it was what do you call it? Your specialty. What's your major?
Psychology.
Yeah, I don't know if I was of course I wasn't a psychologist. Maybe I was using some psychology at the time.
Well, I don't know.
Did I stop from the program?
Yeah. We get along. We usually have the same tastes, and I don't know. We just go along with the flow, and I just never thought about what it takes. I don't know if I could give advice to anybody. That's life. What can I tell you?
Do we get to approve who the viewers are gonna be?
Sure.
Sure.
Don't forget, I got the copyright.